This is the Harmonic Motion Podcast, a place where you, dear listener, can join with automotive aftermarket professionals as they delve into and discuss the matters which matter.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Harmonic Motion Podcast. I'm your host, James Dillon, and on today's episode we're going to talk to Ian Gilgrass and Glen Cutter, who are both top technician judges. We're going to talk about the competition, reasons for entry, what the entries look like, the process that the technicians go through to enter the competition, a little bit of behind the scenes, what's involved in the competition, and some of the positive side effects of being a competitor and what that can mean for a technician's career. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Sit back and relax and see what we learn. Welcome. Today on the podcast, I've got Ian Gilgrass and Glen Cutter with me, and our mission today is to talk about garage and technician competitions, what they involve, the benefit thereof, and maybe what you stand to gain from entering. Before we kick off, I'd like to just ask Ian to share a little bit about his background and career, so you guys that maybe don't know Ian can learn a little bit about Ian.
Right, and I started on the workshop floor many years ago, actually in an Austin Rover dealership. So I had a very good kind of apprenticeship. And then subsequently worked for a fleet organisation, and I owned my own business for a number of years. And then I've worked for a technical information company. And then started training. I thought, well, a few years ago, I thought I'd get out of the industry, and the industry is the only thing I know. So, hence I'm back in the industry and train again. So worked for the IMI for a good number of years, so too many. So, and then worked with everyone else in the industry, trying to actually upskill the industry and make the industry a better place. And that's my aim for my years worth.
Oh, great stuff, Ian. And you've been involved with the top technician competition for a lot of years. How many years is that actually?
Top technician, I can remember I first of all started when it was back at the NEC, and that must have been in the mid-2000s. Can I say that? Mid-2000s? So, yeah, that's a long time ago. So
it's a lot of years.
Approximately about 20 years, put it that way.
Yeah, good stuff. No, thanks for that, Ian. Perfect, great. And Glen, can you give us a brief introduction to your history within the industry and the competitions?
Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Glen. Like Ian, I started on the workshop floor. When I first left school, I worked in a microbiology lab because I thought that's what I wanted to do. Came to working on vehicles slightly later. I was 19 when I went into the workshop. Absolutely loved it. Fell in love with working on anything with an engine. I was really lucky. I actually worked for my dad and my brother-in-law. So my apprenticeship included everything you could possibly think of, including here's a workshop manual with an electrical diagram in it. There's a multimeter. There's a broken vehicle. Go and fix it. If you get any problems, come and ask me. I was there for a great many years. I left there and thought I wanted to try something else, went into telesales and electronic stock implementation. Again, within the industry, working in a dismantling yard. Went from there to a franchise dealership, and a friend of mine who was in training came to see me. My training was mainly Volkswagen Audi based, and this guy who worked at a college said, I need someone to run the Volkswagen commercial vehicle apprenticeship scheme for me. Do you want to come and do it? So I did that. I went into training, became qualified to teach, qualified to assess and verify, etc., etc. Then went into working with standards, quickly realised that perhaps the corporate world was not really me. I do sometimes have a habit of thinking things and saying it, and it might not be quite what people are wanting me to say. I went into adult delegate training, very different from apprentices. Was headhunted to run 2 colleges and worked for a company running 2 colleges where I took them from grade 4 to grade 2, and then diversified and decided that actually arguing with directors every day about the basic needs of a college was not where I wanted to be. So went back into apprentice training, where I'm currently working with City of Bristol College. I look after their heavy vehicle apprenticeship program. I started on the DAF apprenticeship program, but went back into my own. I run their own apprentices, and the program is bucking the trend at the moment. We grew from 20 apprentices at the end of 21-22 cohort to we're now up to 42 coming into 22-23. So we're doing okay, and we obviously doing something right, improving the knowledge and understanding. And like Ian, I just want people to be better. They need to be given information. They need to understand the process and procedure. And that's where I see competitions.
Yeah. So they're really impressive numbers there, Glenn, in your current job, and a really interesting history. So yeah, congratulations on that. And heavy vehicle, obviously, like light vehicle, is suffering with the immense advance in technology, and those guys probably starting from a different base than car guys. And I guess that probably is a big challenge in that specific segment.
They're actually talking now about doing, and some of the dealerships are implementing crossover training, taking light vehicle guys, doing a specific training program for them to come into heavy, because they need people, and it's driving the wages up.
I was going to say, don't most of the skills actually transfer from light vehicle across to heavy vehicle anyway?
Yep. So the big joke that we have is the only difference is the size of the spanner and the size of the hammer. But the tech is the same.
Yeah. No, that's really good. Now, Glenn, tell us a bit about your heritage with the competitions. Again, a bit like Ian's, we're talking about competitions. I know your history is quite rich. Could you share with the listener?
I started with competitions. I first got to know Ian when I was working for a training company in Bristol. I was doing a lot of work with what was then called ATA, and did some judging back in the 2000s. When I disappeared into the wonderful world of the Institute of the Motor Industry, I wasn't allowed to judge at the same time as Ian was off, because they didn't let me. So I had a small break from competition. Then when I went back into the wonderful world of industry, proper working, I have hosted the competition in the colleges down in Bournemouth. I've been judging. One of my things that I like very much, and I sort of specialise a little bit in, is four-wheel alignment. And most people, when they see me, assume that I'm going to give them a four-wheel alignment task, which can be quite interesting. But yeah, I've been involved off and on since about 2005, 6-ish, somewhere around there. It's something that once you involved, you don't want to walk away from.
No, it's really interesting. Again, I think hopefully we'll cover that in a bit more detail, the reasons that we get involved with competitions. Again, a bit like you guys, I relish my involvement, not as long-standing as yours, but I see the benefit that garages and technicians get from that competitive element and how it can really, help improve. What I wanted to try and think about and maybe get your guys' impression of is, if we imagine there's a technician or garage in the UK that don't know about the competitions, they don't know about Top Tech and they don't know about Top Garage, what's the sort of structure? If we could outline what the Top Garage or the Top Tech, whichever order we want to do it in competition, sort of involves. So if you've never entered, let's pick Top Tech. Let's start there. How does that look?
Right then, so to go through Top Technician, first of all, just log into the Aftermarket website, the Aftermarket magazine website. They kind of produce it, they structure it, etc. And then it is as simple as putting your name on an application form, tick a few boxes, and answer 40 questions. It's as simple as that. There's no kind of prerequisites, and the only thing you can't be is a trainer in the industry. That's about one of the few terms and conditions that's actually on there. So, Glenn, you can't.
And the reason for the non-trainer in.
Well, one of the biggest
so what's the main reason that the trainers... Sorry,
James. One of the misconceptions with the guys that I speak to, certainly, is they think there's an entry cost. And there isn't.
It's free, certainly, it's free of charge.
When I
all it is put your name on the website.
I actually said to Ian, when I was first involved with the competition, I was a trainer. And I said, can I enter... because that would be really cool as a trainer to have done this, that, and the other, and maybe have got through to the final. And he said, no. Well, why not? Why can't I enter? He said, you approach things in a different way. You're not currently within the industry working with real customers. And because of the way that we approach things as a trainer, you have to know the both sides of it. You have to know how to diagnose it, but you also need to know how to set up a fault to replicate it. So it's not really a real world thing as a trainer entering a skills competition where we're replicating a fault, because you approach it differently. From certainly my perspective, I think about how can I make a fault do what I want it to do so that when these people look at it, it looks like a real fault. But when you approach a fault from a trainer's point of view, you sort of then think, could they have done this rather than what is the diagnostic process? Certainly, that's my perspective.
Yeah, no, very interesting. And after all, it is called top technician, not top trainer. So maybe there's something for the future. But yeah, I get you. So really, the focus of the competition is about top technician. Yeah. So moving on then, chaps. Go on. Sorry, go on, Ian.
No, I was just about to say, it's about the process. It's all about kind of, can they fix cars at the end of the day? And there's nothing to, put anyone off there whatsoever. It could be a very, very simple fault to a very, very complex fault. So, as well as I do kind of thing, what the tasks could involve. And it could be, the flavour of the month. What's the flavour of the month at the moment, James?
Yeah, sure thing. Yeah, it's AdBlue at the minute. AdBlue would be, if it was a menu, if we were looking at Just Eat for diagnostic faults, number one most ordered off the menu would be AdBlue.
Yep, AdBlue injector always goes wrong, can't fix it.
Yeah, so no, that's really interesting, and it's sort of it is reflective. And one of the things I like about the competition being involved is the reflective nature of the issues that the guys are going to get when they get into the competition. They do reflect real world and maybe current trends as well. So and they can be anything from something, and it always depends. I'm very careful not to say simple, because it's always simple when you know the answer, but a range of faults that reflect the real world.
I think one of the ones that sticks in my head, we did an air conditioning fault, and the actual fault was described as the vehicle loses gas over a period of time. And when they pressure tested it, everyone pressure tested it, and it never lost gas and it never lost pressure, because the fault was the low pressure Schrader valve. Well, how many people pressure test and disconnect their pressure test gear to test the low pressure gauge, low pressure connector, because that's what we test through? And nobody got it. And it wasn't done to catch them out. It was literally check the
logical process.
Yeah, so there is a lot of logic involved. So the faults, I would suggest that that's the case. If you use logic in the competition, you will progress. And that's really, I think, one of the strengths. It doesn't matter what car it is or what problem it is. If you apply that process of logic and sort of ruthless decision making and gathering evidence, you will find the answer.
Yeah, but James, it's always set up in that someone's got a very, very good process, and if they follow that process time after time after time, they will get that fault no matter what. It's the people that start off with a very good process and then go back to, square one, go back to, type. They know it then falls over. And I know one very, very good technician that he had a very good process, and only once did he actually not follow that process, and he didn't do very well at that task.
Yeah, it's very true. Yeah, no, I really agree with that. If we think about the competition there, so somebody that's never entered, once they get into the stages of, let's say, a semi-final, and they come to the venue where that's being held, what sort of scene are they presented with, or what things will they have to do?
Well, before we go into that, James, I think it's kind of, why would you enter it first of all? Why don't people enter it? Because they don't want to they don't want people to find out their strengths and weaknesses. And the only person who probably sees their test results is myself. No one else in the industry actually sees anything, any of those results. So please don't kind of think, they're going to present that, they're going to publish all the results, because the results are never, ever published.
You guys know this, but a lot of people may not know, or a lot of people in the industry don't. I teach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I'm always getting people I'm talking to them and saying, have a go, come along, try it. Oh, I'm not fit enough. I can't do it. I can't do that. And I've got friends that go out and do stuff, and they do park run or whatever. And one of them said, I'm not very good at park run. I'm really slow. I'm thinking of stopping. I said, okay, are you better than the person that doesn't do it, doesn't enter, and just sits on the couch? Because you're faster than all those people, and it's the same with a skills competition. Okay, you may have entered and not got through to the semi-final, but you had the kahunas to step up and enter. You put your skills and knowledge on the line and said, do you know what? I'm going to test myself. I'm going to try. Am I better than I was yesterday? Am I better than I was last year? Do I know more than I did when I was an apprentice? And if the answer is yes, try. And as Ian said, the only person that knows is him. Did you meet the required mark to get through to the semi-final or the next round? Yes, no. If no, try again next year. All it's cost you is some time and some effort. It's not cost you 50 quid to enter. And the benefits at the end of it are massive. Personally, the development I've seen of all the people that I've encountered within this journey of mine through skills competition is fantastic. I've met people from all over the country, and I see them, and they come up and they talk, and the stories they tell of how they've changed is amazing. And it's just cost them effort, nothing more.
I think they also mature. They mature personally, and as a person, they don't know. And whatever you apply, I know from the competition will get transferred into your own personal life as well.
Yeah, it's really, really, yeah, absolutely. I think that growth and the journey that you explained there, Glenn, that, yeah, exactly that. If you're not trying, you won't improve. And even you're never going to be the best at the first time, and nobody will ever be their best, and nobody stops learning. I think that lifelong learning piece, that the day we stop learning is the day they put the lid down on the coffin. And people are on that journey, and they're at different stages. And I think the competition for me gives a barometer of, budding techs that want to improve, of where they are, how they got on. It's a lovely self-learning tool, and as you say, there's no threat to anyone scores being let out. In fact, I see on Facebook the guys that get through. And in fact, some that don't, I'm just thinking of a couple of posts where the guys didn't do quite so well this year that they did last year. And they're going, I sort of rushed it. I didn't prepare. I sort of had a go, and I wasn't really, and they're sharing those scores because they realize, that's just something they do, and they're happy to do that. But yeah, there is no risk, is it? So it's zero risk to entry. The only risk is you might improve.
Yeah.
Well, the only risk is yourself.
Yeah, your pride might not be quite as intact after you did the questions as it was before, but if you're prepared to look at it and go, do you know what? I didn't know enough about four-wheel alignment. I didn't know enough about EV. I didn't know enough about AdBlue. You've got your very free, very personalized training needs analysis tool that you haven't had to do anything for because somebody's given it to you, and you go, oh, I need to know about that. Right, where can I get some info on that from? And it gives you a self-improvement process that's cost you diddly squat a bugger all.
Yeah, and there's huge value to that, Glenn. You're absolutely right. That analysis then for guys to go off and do their own thing, and whether that's now looking at YouTube videos or reading books or articles in magazines to help, accelerate your understanding of that. And if it turns into being a training course or something more formal, great. But yeah, I think you're right. And I was going to say, wouldn't it be better to be... if your impression of yourself is a little bit higher than it ought to be, it brings us down to a level which says, reflect on this, that, it's probably worse to be thinking you're better than you are than you're not. And I would say there's probably an equal number of people that go, actually, I did all right there. I was sort of worried about my levels, and I've gone through the competition, and do you know what? I'm a little bit better than I think.
I think we all put ourselves down. We know, and it's about self-recognition.
Yeah, self-awareness. Yeah, knowing where you are.
If you're self-aware enough to know that you are of in your head sufficient capability and ability to enter the competition, and you get to the point where you think, oh, I need to know more, then you are the sort of technician that I would go, do you know what? I'll give you my car to fix. Because if you're the sort of technician that goes, I know everything, I need no training, I am better than the best, but you've never put your skills to the test. We all need
training, Glenn.
Exactly. So how can you say, I don't need training? As trainers, we need training, which we have to do mandatory for our things.
I've just completed 2 or 3 days worth of training.
But techs need training.
I've just done some first aid training, and that was eye-opening.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've never done first aid in a top tech competition.
No.
We did,
but it is that open-minded, lifelong learning.
We never had to do first aid on a competitor who decided that he'd explode a bulb all over his hand and bleed all over the car. We won't mention any names.
No, we won't.
It can happen. It's real world. It's the real world after all. Yeah, so that's a really good impression then of the early rounds where the guys are doing non-threatening in their own home, an online quiz, if you like, for the first round. In the first round, when they make it to the second round, there's a lift of the sort of depth of knowledge they need in. What's the transition? What does that look like in comparison?
So the questions for the second round will, like you say, will grow. They will kind of get more and more in depth. So the second round is another online quiz and multi-choice or multi-guess, as you want to whoever put it. And then we will start to filter people out through. And then the third round is a open type questions, where they have to start to investigate their own knowledge and a little bit more in depth. And it's not until you get through to the semi-final, will you be practically assessed? Will you actually meet anyone? So yeah, that's when the fun begins.
One of the things I would say is all of the questions. Yes. I know there's been chatter in the past that all these questions they're rubbish, or they've not thought about this. The questions are not all written by the same person. They are seen by several people within the industry to check that they actually ask what the person writing it thinks they are. I would say they're passed through a number of industry professionals. Yeah.
They are passed through about 5 or 6 people before anyone ever sees any questions. just to make sure they're kind of technically correct as well.
Yeah, with the questions, when they start off at a level which is like, it's a good technical, competent technician level. Then they step up a little bit more of a technician with a little bit more of an understanding and a technical understanding, and they want to be better. Then the open questions are, okay, this is the sort of, there's an expectation of what the answer will be. And sometimes you get through an answer that is, wow. And I only say that because I don't get to see them, but I get to hear the highlights. And I don't even know who's written the highlight, but occasionally I'll have a conversation with Ian and he'll say, somebody said this, and it's a really cool answer. And you're like, wow, that's awesome. But again, Ian's the only one that knows. And when it comes to semis, that's the time when we get to meet people. But the guy who gets through to semi is the one who he's done the initial one and thought, I got through that. Then he's done round 2 and thought, oh, do you know what? I might put a bit more effort in here. Then he gets the open questions and goes, wow, this is quite tricky, but actually I've come this far. I'm going to put the effort in.
That's when it starts becoming a little bit serious.
Yeah.
So that's when.
Yeah. So the level steps up.
They've got to put a little bit of time and effort into it then. But apart from that, it's like I say, it's easy. It's simple on rounds 1, 2, and 3.
So that sounds really good. So on their journey, then once they get through the 3 online papers, then there's a select few, and I'll let you fill the details in. That then are invited across to a venue somewhere in the country, set up as a workshop with the practical elements. So talk to me about what the guys who make it through.
There will be a number of, I know there would probably be about 5 practical tasks, all lasting around about 20 minutes. And they will range from a very, very simple task through to, it could be a complex task. But they're only given around about 20 minutes to actually repair the fault on the car. So the faults can't be that, complex, as it were. Very, very simple. It's just a matter of applying their skills to,
I think the biggest step up between the open questions and the semi-finals is when they come in, they'll actually see their other competitors. So that's a big difference for them. They get to see who they're competing against. They get to come to a venue. Last year, we were lucky enough, we were at Delphi in Warwickshire. And they see a vehicle, and then they also see the judges. So they get to see who the people are involved who are going to turn around and say, yes, no, maybe. And the tasks are their normal, everyday workshop tasks that we as a judging panel have either seen or come across or worked on at some point. And some of the tasks, as Ian said and alluded to, they're not the most complex task in the world. However, when you put that together, when you put that together with a time restriction in a pressure environment, out of your comfort zone, I have seen really, really good technicians taking a wheel off and they're shaking. And all they've got to do is undo some wheel nuts. And it's a task they've done hundreds and hundreds of times, but because it's in a completely different environment, under a pressure situation, the hands are giving it, then it's a different way of looking at a task.
I think because they've probably got a bit of time pressure on them as well. That they put the pressure actually on themselves, not on because of the task that's actually presented in front of them. You could have a very
really
simple
good point.
task.
Ian. Really good point.
You put a little bit of time. You put a little bit of time on them, and they start to and people start to actually think about things in a different light.
Yeah, so really the tasks are if they were into a workshop, so if they were, and this is sometimes the advice I know as a judge I give the competitors that I'm working with, if you think about this like it was a job at work and proceed in that normal fashion and almost try and blank out the fact you're in a competition or blank out the fact that this is under time pressure. If you dealt with this like it was at work, those jobs wouldn't necessarily be super challenging, would they? Is that fair to say?
I would say that,
Correct.
Yeah, I know. It's just structure. It's a process. It's, as long as you do step 1, step 2, step 3, you will not go far wrong.
Yes, and I think sometimes we see as a judging panel then for competitors coming through that technicians may not succeed in the first year they make it through because there's a certain amount of familiarity. Would you agree with being in the competitive environment? Does that offer an advantage to a tech second time round maybe?
I think sometimes it's just being in that environment is enough to actually put someone put stress under someone. But yeah, I know it's about, is what we said before was about having fun, about kind of, and making sure you're actually enjoying yourself.
One of the big parts that I feel is quite important, where before we start any of the competitions, whether it's semis or finals, we have a chat with all the competitors and we try to put them at ease, introduce all the judges, make sure they're okay. And you can tell the ones that have been there before. The ones that have been there before are slightly more relaxed. Sometimes there can be, I know that the new competitors are a little bit, they're a bit familiar. Yeah, we know them. Yeah, we say hello, but everybody gets judged the same. But the guys that have been there before they know what to expect. They've seen it. They understand. And that little bit of relaxation just helps them. And telling the guys, right, this is the order, this is what you're going to do, this is where you're going to be. You can physically see them go, and they breathe out. But yeah, if they've done it before, they know what to expect. They're not as uptight as they are the first time they did it. Because let's face it, whenever we do something for the first time, we're not really sure how well it's going to work. Is it going to go how I want, or am I going to fall apart? And I don't think have we ever had anyone walk out, Ian?
We've had one person walk out before.
Was that just the pressure got to them? Was it, Ian, a little bit?
The pressure, they got to the first task and they said, it's not for me, and walked out through the door. So, but that's very, very rare. I would say, I know most people kind of stick with it and most people want to succeed.
Well, there you go.
There's that golden zone, I think, often of the first task, isn't there? Yeah, so the first task, I think, is, and again, my experience of competitors at that second, at the semi-finals, maybe it depends. The first task is get your eye in, isn't it? And then I think I observe 99% of people then just slip into the groove of, this is actually a bit like work. This is just diagnostic processes. This is carrying out the job. This is carrying out the task. I think.
I know the only thing we don't have on is a radio. I think, other than that, anything goes. So, I think even this year we put the radio on, didn't we?
Yeah, we've had noise and radio and people talking, and it's just a normal-ish workshop environment. The way the guys go about working, yeah, and certainly the people that I know that judge, they're not stood on their shoulder, they're not leaning over them. Half the time they're not writing anything down. They'll have a chat with them. They'll be their operator or button presser, and if they ask for something and it's not at the judging station and we can get it, it's provided most of the time, as long as it's actually relevant to the task they want. If it's not, they'll be told, you don't actually need to test that bit. So some things are circumvented, like I want to go and test the giggle pin bearing. Actually, for this task, you really don't need to do that. So they'll be stopped if it's relevant to the task in hand. If they want to go off and test every single wire in the CAN bus system because there's a CAN fault presented, then yes, as a judge, we're going to let them because that's the process they've decided.
Yeah, valid point. So normal workshop rules apply, really. It's a normal workshop rules apply. This is a job like it would be at work. Here are your array of tools, and the guys are given, aren't they, a job sheet or some direction about the type of task or the type of fault that they've got in front of them.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's and I wouldn't say it's completely rocket science. It's about kind of sticking to your plan you've come in with and making sure. And we don't use special tools. We don't, and if there is a tool you're not familiar with, we kind of guide the person through it.
It's not about trying to catch somebody out. It is literally, this is the fault on the vehicle. Have you seen this diagnostic tool? Okay, no. Tell me what you want the tool to show you, and I'll drive. I won't tell you what you need, but if you tell me what you want, I'll tell you how to get there. So even one of the excuses a guy gave to me about not entering was, well, you use all this diagnostic kit that I've not got. Okay, but you don't need to have that kit because we provide it, and as long as you can tell us what you want. If you say, I want to have the scope pattern for number one injector overlaid with the crank angle sensor and the cam sensor, but I've never used this particular scope, then we'll help you set it up. We're not going to put everything in for you because you've got to have some input, because obviously you've already said what you want, but we can drive. And that negates, it puts a level playing field. So whether you're... Yeah,
and the guys aren't negatively marked, are they? Or they're not marked up or marked down, are they, for the use of the tools?
No.
Yeah.
We had a Volkswagen-trained technician in on a Volkswagen task using Odis. I was stood next to him and I went, I didn't know I could do that. That was great. I loved it because I learned loads. But the guys who came in that were independent, who had never used Odis, they didn't get marked down because it's not their fault that they don't have Odis in their dealership. So yeah, we just
Odis, Glenn?
work with them. Sorry?
What's Odis?
Odis, so the diagnostic platform for Volkswagen.
Yeah. Fantastic. I've learned something today as well.
Yeah, good stuff. Good. Listen, guys, if you could give, let's say we've got a prospective listener out there that wants to join the competition, and we're going to go across, if we did a quick sample of everybody that you've ever met, and you can assimilate their strengths and weaknesses, and you could come up with maybe a piece of advice for somebody that's been lurking, they've been looking in the background, I fancy a go at Top Tech, but I'm a bit unsure, I'm a bit this and a bit that. What sort of advice would you give them about the entry, bar go on and enter, but what sort of things could they do to prepare themselves best to succeed?
Be structured. There will be a range of questions, on the online test, first of all, or the online quiz. They will range from anything from wheels, tyres, through to diagnostic technicians, through to kind of electricity, electrical faults. So yes, just to have a broad range of knowledge and expect the unexpected.
For me, I have one competitor that sticks in my head, and I tell this story quite a lot. But he worked and had a process. And when I teach apprentices now, so the way that apprenticeships are now is slightly different. But the third year, I teach them a diagnostic process so that regardless of whether it's engine, gearbox, transmission, driveline, electrical, whatever, there is a process that you follow, and you do the process exactly the same. And if you have a process so that when you come through to, as Ian's already said, you need a broad brush knowledge of what the industry's doing. Find out what the current trends are so you understand and where you are. But if you get to the face-to-face, you must have a process. If you haven't got a process and you go from step A to Z to Q to R back to H, it doesn't matter how much time we give you, you're not going to find it. But if you have a process where you go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, oh yeah, that means it's going to be that, you will get there. And you must, I keep saying it, if you do not have a process, you will not get through. And the having a process will then improve you in the workshop, because instead of being a scattergun approach or firing the parts cannon, you're going to work through your process, which means that you're going to be more accurate, which means you're going to be faster, which means you'll fix more vehicles.
Yeah, so it's a really interesting point. So the skills that they learn in the competition are directly relatable to the jobs and the way they're going to operate at work. And I certainly have witnessed guys that have come in and maybe learnt a better process as part of the competition, that they take that back to work and they're getting more success in their bays on the jobs that they're doing.
But isn't this about first time fix though? It's about kind of doing it right and actually making an accurate diagnosis rather than guessing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that should drop out of a process, isn't it? As Glenn said, if you've got a process and you're executing that, you start at A and get to Z. You're doing your tests along the way. You're analysing the evidence. The evidence suggests what's wrong, and you prove that. Yeah, absolutely. That gets the first time fix, doesn't it?
I think for me, one thing that teaching apprentices has showed me is when I have a few female apprentices come through. Unfortunately, our industry is a little bit, let's be honest, it's a little bit sexist, and our female technicians' knowledge is usually questioned far more than our male technicians' knowledge. And they're the ones I have worked with and spoken to, they're not accepting of it, don't get me wrong, but they're used to it. So their process is actually very good, because they are always questioned, did you really do that? Did you really test this? And they have a process, and they come through, and I've actually witnessed it, where this guy went, well, I'm sure you're wrong. And they sat him down and went through the process and went, I tested this, this, and this, which led me to this. I tested this, this, and this, which led me to this. And I tested this, this, and this, and it led me to this. You tested that and said it was that. But actually, when I tested it, it worked. He went back out, tested it, came back in, apologised, and they ordered the bits and got the vehicle fixed first time. And so, yeah, it's about first time fix. It's about being accurate. It's about being able to work with your process to get the vehicle correct. And yeah, we put faults in that are real, and there is a time scale. And if you follow your process, you will fix it, and you will be able to go, do you know what? Before I started this competition, I didn't really understand how to diagnose an AdBlue problem. But now I've done this, this, and this, and I diagnosed that AdBlue problem in 20 minutes. Oh my God. And you see the techs walk away, and they sit down, and I've spoken to me. You're right. Yeah. What's the matter? I just diagnosed that fault in 20 minutes. Yeah. Well, I did one before 6 months ago, and it took me 3 hours. Well, yeah. What's different? I've got a better process now. And you see the development of them within the comp and the development of them within the garage, and the two are mutually beneficial. And the guys that enter get better. And that, I think that's coming back to what we said before about why do they not always win first time? They're not quite ready. They're not quite there.
But you see people grow though. You see people grow, develop, whatever you want to call it, and they get a better person as well, or they become a better person because they're they're a better tech, they're more structured, and and that relates to both their kind of technical kind of knowledge and their personal knowledge as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, it's a powerful, and like Glenn said about the park run, it's a journey, isn't it? And I think anyone that enters a competition has to realise year 1, year 2, year 3, whenever they enter, wherever they exit the competition, wherever they enter, it is about the journey and advancing their knowledge, skills, understanding, and learning the huge benefits that, or the unassumed benefits at the start that you get. I was going to say. What do you think in terms of the winners and guys that maybe get through to the finals, or runners up, or the bronze medal, or the gold, silver, and bronze? The guys that get through to that level, have you got any reflections of comments or conversations you've heard about? What it means to win is obviously off the scale, but the positive stories that those guys, anything that stands out in your mind from previous succeeding tests?
Yeah, there's lots and lots of positive stories. Everyone says, why can't I enter next year? I know, because I've won it, this time, why can't I go, why can't I, do it next year? So, yeah, I know, unfortunately, that is one of the rules. Once you've won, you can't re-enter it for another year. But on Top Garage, most people will then start to, own their own business and actually grow and start to actually grow their own business as well. And that's why Top Garage is actually there.
Yeah, so that's a really interesting point then, Ian, about the top technician. Maybe the winner's been through the competition several times. So I know we've had a couple of winners, haven't we? They've been in the competition for a number of years, and they really relish that process, and they enter and re-enter because they're obviously getting some benefit in terms of personal development. And when that journey ends, I guess, when you have won it, you've won it. There is no winning it twice, but it must pay testament to the positivity of the competition that they want to go again.
I don't think the journey ends. That's where the journey starts. I know it's, whereabouts, some people go on to own their own business. Some people start to become, become a trainer. Some people, develop engineers, etc. So that's when the journey starts, and they actually become a better person for it as well.
I think one of the things that sticks in my mind from previous winners is when you meet them the first time they compete, and then you meet them when they've won, the difference in the person with how they react to things. And we do put some very different things in the competition. You're turning up expecting it to be the most technical, electrically based, all singing, all dancing competition, and we put a fire engine in front of you. Or we put a vehicle in front of you and say, actually, the lawnmower won't start. But it's the lawnmower's in the car, and actually the customer's locked the keys in the car. Can you get the lawnmower out and fix it? The look on people's faces is, oh my God, you can't give me a lawnmower. You can't give me a fire engine. 1 year they went, oh, what are you going to give us next? A tractor. I said, well, I couldn't get the tractor this year. And they went, no, we were kidding. No, I'm not. But the guys that have been in the competition and the guys that have won are now, you give them something and they go, oh, okay. Yeah, no problem. I can look at that for you. Yeah, give me a minute. I'll just put my brain in gear. All right, I've got a process. Let's go. And the whole change in them is massive, and it's very, very satisfying to look and go, do you know what? I've been part of that journey with them. I've seen them develop and change, and I've got a friend. Some of them I would say are friends for life, that they're not, oh, you're horrible, you're a judge. They're, thank you. And I've had so many people come up afterwards and say thank you. And I'm like, for what? I haven't done anything. I was the one that wrote on there, actually didn't score 100% on this one. But it doesn't matter, because you've been on this journey with them to help them develop. And they are the top percentage in the country, because they're the ones that have stepped up, got to that line and said, go on, I'll put myself out there. And the development for them is off the scale.
Yeah, it's massive. Glenn, really good point there. The judges often, judging in a competition. Would you say it's fair? My own perspective of judging is that we're actually coach judges. So although we are maybe keeping score and guiding them a little bit through the process and sort of start time, finish time, here's your task, here are the tools. Would you agree that there's an element of coaching that goes on?
Yes. If you've got someone on a task, and they've never seen that type of vehicle before, they've never seen that diagnostic kit before, and you've given them a fault that they may have seen something like it, so they may work on Fords and we've given them a Volkswagen. So, yeah, there is actually, Volkswagen Group do it this way, or BMW Group do it that way, and it is, you can't just go, no, can't help you, can't talk to you, not going to give you any info. Because that's a bit like going, go on then, you see that Koenigsegg out there, I want you to fix it and I'm going to give you no technical data and no tools. Well, you could be whoever, the best person in the world. If you've got no technical data and no tools, you're not going to do it. So the coaching is...
So you think that support, support and coaching is part of that process?
Very much so. And there is, the judging is objective, so there are criteria to be met, and that's really important, because if it's subjective, for instance, I might give Ian more marks because I like him, he's nice to me, than I give you, James, because I don't know, you looked at me funny when we walked in the room. That's a subjective marking schedule. So there's always probably going to be more than one answer, one way to actually diagnose that problem. It's just not kind of, it's not prescriptive. It's kind of, it's making sure that you just follow a process to actually get to actually find the fault on the vehicle.
And competency based, isn't it? So you've demonstrated that skill or that knowledge or that understanding. However, like you say, multiple ways of getting to the answer, but you've demonstrated a competent route and you've demonstrated the skills on the way, and you therefore get the marks. And guys that are struggling, I guess, Glenn, or maybe aren't. Yeah, you get the mark for it, and then guys that have lost their way a bit. There is I feel that that's part of that process of coaching in a way, not giving the answer even, but maybe asking the question that they maybe haven't got quite yet in their own mind, where you can see them almost getting there. And what are the questions you need answered? One of the favourite ones I've got is, what question do you need the answer to now? And when the guys' processes have gone a little bit wonky, sometimes it's just a little bit about, redirecting the thoughts rather than anything else.
It's sometimes, to me, it's like you see them and you can see, have they got a process? Tick, mark in the box. Are they following their process? Tick, mark in the box. Have they got to the answer? Not quite. Where are you in your process? Oh, well, and they talk you through it. And I've done this, and I've done this, and I've done this. Okay. And you can just go, and one of the questions I'd like is, have you considered? And they go away and they go, and you can look at them, and in education, it's called a gestalt moment, or they have an epiphany, and you look at them and this little light bulb appears above their head and they go, oh my God, and my process needs this bit, and this bit. And it's just like they've had a stutter and you've gone poke and off they go. You haven't given them anything. You haven't said it's this. You've just gone, have you considered? And every judge I speak to, regardless of whether it's myself, whether it's you, whether it's Ian, Steve, or any of the guys that have judged, they all go, yeah, you sometimes got to just give them a prod, because they get stuck in this little cycle and they can't get over that little bump. And you give them a prod and they're over the bump and they're away. And it's not giving them anything. It's just reassuring them that actually you're on the right track. And when you think about it, when you're in your workshop, you've got Bill, the old timer who's been there for 150 years and knows everything about everything on these old vehicles. And you go up to him and you go, Bill, look, I want to run something past you. I've done this, this, and this. What would you do next? Well, I'd look at this. Well, that's a good point.
But it's
on a skills competition, you can't.
just having that other person to bounce an idea off of. It's just about bouncing an idea off someone, kind of thing. And yeah, I know all the judges are all receptive. They're not gonna prejudging people. They just want people to succeed.
Yeah, and that's that. Yeah, absolutely. Ian, success. Let's think about competition winners and guys that have progressed through the competition. In your mind, or have you got an example? We could maybe name names of people that have really, gone on. The competition's got them in an updraft, and they've ended up somewhere really positive as part of their journey on the competition.
Not naming names, I could name a lot of names in the industry whereabouts they've ended up. Some people have actually ended up in training roles. Some people have ended up in very technical roles. Some people have ended up working with vehicle manufacturers. Some people have ended up working with tool companies, equipment companies. So yeah, I know. Everyone thinks they've reached the pinnacle of their career, but it's only the first little bit of a beginning. Yeah, I know, and they have matured into such a kind of a great person, and I know, and they always want to help people. I don't know whether they're kind of a technical trainer or whether they're a office-based person. They just want to help people because people have helped them to actually get to where they are.
Yeah, and they're paying it back, or they're paying it forward, so to speak. Yeah. No. Cool stuff. Glenn, have you got any particular favourites?
I think, again, it's really difficult because you have to look at, there are some guys who've won this competition and they are, this can sound wrong, they're in the same place they were when they won the competition, i.e. they work in the same place, or they're still in the same business, or they're doing the same thing. And that's because they entered the competition and they wanted to prove themselves and prove to their employer, owner, whoever, that they are what they say they are, which is the best of the best. Others have gone on and been moved jobs. There's some who have won the competition and gone on to start their own business, and their own business is now doing very, very well. And it's some of them, it is a confidence booster for them to step forward and go, do you know what? I was good enough to win that. I can now do this. And whether that's become the service manager, the after sales director, or the owner of a new business, it steps them forward. Some have been headhunted by big business and gone, we want to whisk you away. Brilliant. Absolutely amazing. So the fact that our industry businesses recognize that these guys are the best of the best in the technician world, then, and they think that they've got the skills to come and work for them. Some of the guys are doing stuff so far removed from fixing vehicles, it's like it's rocket science. But they started exactly the same as we did, in a workshop, spinning a spanner, learning what that thing did, and learning the 4-stroke cycle. And they've gone right the way up to winning a competition, to working for one of the industry's leading employers. And that's just amazing. And yeah, there's so many names, and there's funny stories and sad stories all the way through. But the biggest thing that has come through from all of this is when you speak to them, how much they enjoyed it. And we've said, with these tasks we put on this year were, I think one year we said, one of these tasks are really difficult. And there's one of the guys went, yeah, but they're really accurate. And I saw one like that 2 weeks ago. You think, bugger, that task wasn't hard enough. And every year we have a chat about, do you think that we've made these tasks too hard or too easy? But the guys they come back and they're getting better and better and better. And I think all of the winners, the runners up, the third places, down to the fifth places, down to the people in the semi-finals, would all say they've had a great time and they've learned something.
Yes, and I think that's backed up and supported by the number of multiple entries of guys, persisting to re-enter once they're into the groove. They really do see that as a huge benefit to their career development. So, I would agree. Ian, have you got any final thoughts about? Let's think about the guy sat there listening to this, thinking, "I'm going to give that a bash." What are your closing thoughts on him entering?
My closing thoughts are just do it. I know it's a no-lose situation. I just think, you can only grow, just by entering, just by putting your name forward, because you don't know who they are. And like I say, they just grow. I know I've just watched people grow, whether they've got through to the second round, whether they've got through to the third round, they've actually got through to the semi-finals, their finals, or they've won the competition. And it's a great way to meet other people and actually network as well.
Yeah, good point. Really good point. The networking element of the competition shouldn't be underestimated. Glenn, any final thoughts?
As Ian said, the only thing that is going to limit you in a competition is you. I firmly believe that if you want to do something, do it. There are obviously considerations. Some of the guys have to take time off from work to compete. Some of the guys, their employers give them time to compete. So, and each person will enter for their personal reason, and each garage will either support or not support for their personal reason. But the only thing that you can gain from entering a competition is more experience, more knowledge, better ability, better exposure to the rest of the industry. And we've got guys who competed, and there are now other garages that ring them because they know, oh, do you know what? So-and-so is really good with this stuff. I've got a problem. I'll ring him. And he goes, yeah, well, we did so-and-so competition together, didn't we? Yeah, give me 5 minutes. I'll ping you some info across. And you build this network of support, but you also work out that where am I within the skill set of our industry at the moment? Am I in the top, in the middle, in the bottom? Do I need to get better? Am I in the specialist area over here, or am I in the specialist area over there? And I see lots of different garages through my work type of thing. And there are those that can and do, those that can and don't, and those that really want to. And I've always been I really want to. And the guys that go into the competition are of that ilk. They really want to, and they will put themselves forward. And if the garages can and want to,
I just think it's a can-do.
They'll support them.
A can-do exercise.
Yeah, and you can, and they do.
I'd like to. You can, yeah. I've got a favourite quote that I often used it with my children growing up, and it came from Henry Ford. And Henry Ford has a favourite saying that says, "If you believe you can, or you believe you can't, you're right." And I think that's really sort of sage advice. And I think maybe the guys that are thinking about it that they can't, well, you can change. You're in control of that destiny. And I would encourage everyone that wants to learn to grow, to identify some gaps in their knowledge, to enter that competition for the benefit it gives in terms of development all round, personal skill set, networking, technical uplift, embracing insult and fixing the challenge. I really can't think beyond some of the nervousness. I can't think of a negative that comes from entering.
I think, sorry, James, picking up on the nervousness, one of the other benefits of doing this competition, the guys all talk to each other about how do you cope with nerves? How do you cope when you can't do this? And we all have had at some point a job where we've come away from it and sat there and thought, how am I going to fix this? I've been nervous about it. And you go into work the next day and you're thinking, oh my God, how am I going to fix this? But you overcome those nerves, you overcome that anxiety, you overcome, whether it's through somebody saying to you, do you know what? I'm Bill. I know everything about these vehicles and I've never seen something like this. What do you reckon of trying that? Whether it's somebody giving you some sage advice or whether you've gone away and looked at mindfulness or you've run 15 miles the night before, absolutely taken your head out of your body and you've gone, do you know what? I forgot to check X, Y, and Z. And you go into work the next day and you go, there it is. Because I was so pent up about worrying about whether I could diagnose it. I missed that bit. And the competition gives you this ability to work out how to control your nerves and your anxiety. Because let's face it, you've got a fault. You've got 20 minutes to fix it. And if you spend the whole time being nervous and anxious, you're not even going to get past step A. So you have to get out of your head and into your body and get on with it.
Yeah, and I think the competition gives a really safe environment for that to happen as well. I wouldn't say, that's recognised and it's encouraged and it's also coped with. So, yeah, no, great stuff. Listen, chaps, you're not going to believe it, but we're at the end of our time together. So it's a great insight you've given us. Yeah, already, it's a great insight you've given our dear listener about the competition for top technician. We'll pick up another conversation another time about maybe Top Garage. But I'd just like to thank you on behalf of our
James,
listener for your input. And
can I just say one thing there?
Yes.
The competition.
Yes,
the competition first round entry finishes at the end of March. So, there's still lots and lots of time to actually enter the competition. But thank you for your time.
Yeah, good show. Yeah, no, thanks very much. Thanks, Ian. And thanks, Glenn.
No worries. Enjoyed it.